I'm saying, Lewis. I'm saying. I mean, like, if you go bankrupt, bring a smile to my face. I'm not gonna lie. I would laugh. I'll come buy you a beer. I'll come up on the Acela. I'll fly business class up. See you. I'll buy you a beer when you go bankrupt. But I'm just saying, like.
You mad, bro? Are you mad that I'm about to beat you to 1 million when I started at 0 and you had about 250,000? Are you mad, bro, that I'm gonna beat you to that plaque? It's gonna say on it, 1 million subscribers for not being a YouTube content creator. That point that where my primary source of revenue and not even secondary is YouTube, in spite of the fact that I left you in the dust. The fact that you got a content strike on your channel for live streaming an Apple event that is open to the public for anybody to see. I have not gotten a strike or a violation in 7 years, regardless of what I've said about Apple. There's a law firm that gets probably $1,200 an hour to contact me and say, we don't like this thing that we believe to be copyrighted and trade secret content in your video. And I just poof, nobody cares. You live stream an Apple event that is open to the public, and I understand why you're salty, man. If I were you, I'd be salty too.
He repairs equipment. He repairs equipment for a company he pretty much hates. That company pretty much hates him. Not only does that company pretty much hate him, but that company pretty much wants anybody like him to no longer exist. Just like that. Let's go put that right there. Just gotta put that right there. You can take a look at that. It's gonna. I'm saying, Lewis. I'm saying. I mean, like, if you go bankrupt, bring a smile to my face. I'm not gonna lie. I would laugh. I'll come buy you a beer. I'll come up on the Acela. I'll fly business class up. See you. I'll buy you a beer when you go bankrupt. But I'm just saying, like, let's think about it. I'm growing. I remember when I was growing. I remember when I had a company that I called the Bottle Rocket business model. I remember when I was doubling. Every 60 to 90 days. Right up till we hit the fucking wall in Mach 3. Going Mach 3 as an entrepreneur is an amazing feeling. What's not amazing is hitting the wall at Mach 3. When you hit the wall at Mach 3, it's just its own kind of fun, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, that's like that. Yeah, Lenovo equals spill proof. No Rossmann necessary. Rossmann. Go get it, boy. Go get it. It's the point. The point that I was making is running that way. It's running that way really fast. If you start now, maybe you can catch up to the point, or maybe not. Again, you're at a not you're dude. You're at Rick and Morty level brains. You have a Rick and Morty level. I can't look up to the brain power that you have. Like when you sit there and you say Lenovo is spill proof, no Rossmann necessary. Now, when I hear that, I hear a certain something. Apparently, when you hear that, you hear dollar signs? Yeah, Eli, don't you understand? That's how business works. When people don't need to hire you for your services, that's how you make the most money. The people that made their millions of dollars were the ones that were smart, and they went into businesses that nobody needed. I don't think that's how it works here, Lewis. I mean, go for it. Go for it. You know, there's nothing I think would be more hilarious. I mean, you know, I'm not supposed to say it. Not supposed to say it. Now look, I will buy him a keg of beer if he goes bankrupt. But you know I will laugh my ass. But like, that's the thing with Lewis. Like, and that's what's weird. That's what's weird. It's so weird. It's so weird to me. Because he doesn't like Apple. I don't think he doesn't have anything that is Apple. He doesn't like Apple as a company. He disagrees with like all their policies. He does videos telling people not to buy Apple. And then he's making all his money off of Apple. Like, I don't understand. Like, I think he would at least fake it, right? It's like, I guess he's honest. I mean, he is honest about it. You got to give him credit. He's honest for how he feels. makes all his money off of Apple and then tells you to buy a Lenovo. There's respect there. There is a lot of respect to that. But I'm just saying.
How's it going? So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the comments that I get on a regular basis. These are not exactly Eli's comments. Eli and I actually get along even though we throw shit at each other, particularly more now since I just so happen to be winning more. At the end of the day, there are a lot of questions or comments that I get that are very, very repetitive in nature, particularly in certain subreddits, and they go something like this. There's three main things that I want to address in this video. The first is, LOL, you dislike Apple, you hate Apple, but you work on Apple. Why do you work on it if you hate it? That's so dumb. Stop doing that. If you don't like it, then just stop working on it. And, well, one of the things is I don't actually hate Apple. I have a disdain for the way that they treat their customers, and I think the way they design some of their products, frankly, is just, well, shit. And there's a wealth of information on this channel, and my arguments and objective evidence as to why I believe this is the case. But I digress. You can watch the rest of my content to go over that. There's a sleight of hand when it comes to logic that's going on when that statement is presented, which is, why are you working on something for a company that you hate? There's a genuine logical sleight of hand here. Let's just try to apply this to some other businesses that are not laptop repair or even technology related. You hate cancer, Mr. Oncologist, but you work on cancer. That's so dumb. Do we call oncologists dumb? They dislike cancer. They also just so happen to deal with cancer. You don't like abusive men, but you work with charities like RAIN to provide psychological help and counseling to battered women. That's so dumb. Why are you working with abuse victims if you hate abuse? You see, if you apply that mentality to just about any other job in the world, any other job where somebody's tasked with solving a problem, it falls apart pretty quickly, and it sounds pretty stupid. To say that an oncologist should stop working on cancer if they hate cancer, to say that a psychotherapist or a social worker should stop working with domestic abuse victims because they hate domestic abuse, that's just dumb. There's really no other way to put it other than to say that it's very, 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 very dumb. If I were working at Apple and I were employed by Tim Cook and he was personally paying me to do web design on the site or to do some sort of WWDC event or to write PR, then that would make a lot of sense. You dislike their practices, but they pay you a salary to code their website or design for them or something like that, then we'd have an understanding. But I don't work for Apple, I don't work on behalf of Apple, and I don't do what they would prefer that we do, which is go away. I do the exact opposite. What I do is I don't service Apple. I don't work for Apple. I fix the problems that their engineering or their customer service or their repair program does not. The problems that they put into the world, I help fix. I am not employed by Apple, nor does Apple pay me. That's the next thing we're going to get to, that whole concept that Apple pays my bills. No, customers pay my bills. They pay me to solve problems that you created. So if you're a social worker, are you getting paid by abusive husbands? Are abusive husbands paying your bill? No, they're not. The women that so happen to choose to go to you or to seek psychological help or treatment are the people who are paying your bills. Is cancer paying your bills if you're an oncologist? No, the cells themselves are not paying your bills. We don't talk like this when it comes to any other industry. The patient is paying your bill to make them healthy again. The next thing that I always find interesting is when somebody says, well, you don't work on Lenovo. Why don't you work on Lenovo? Why did you make money on Lenovo? And I always find this kind of talk particularly interesting when it comes from people who say that the way that you are to become successful in the world is to find problems and solve them. And as you can see from this video, when you spill a gallon of water onto a Lenovo device or a quart, whatever it was in that video, and you're using it and Prime 95ing it, and it stops working 5 months later because they're actually pretty good and spill proof, even though I really made sure to get it in there, they paid for the shipping and they fixed it for free. For free. So the reason that I don't work on those is because that is not a problem. It would be like an oncologist working on polio. Why does he not work on polio? Because polio was solved a long time ago with the vaccine. There's no need for an oncologist to work on polio. Polio's solved. Polio's done. We don't worry about polio anymore. It's not a problem. And when it comes to certain other brands, they've made their devices fairly spill-proof. You don't need me. Now, there's this idea that, well, exactly, the point is there. You're missing the point that there's going to be less money for you as time goes on. Well, that's where we come back to the fact that my argument that Apple does not care about their customers. I firmly believe from many people that I've spoken to that in order to get Apple stuff up to the durability of other companies, to plug these little holes that make a lot of our income, literally, because, holes that the liquid goes through, would be about 1 day of engineering. Like 1 day of engineering and they're done. But there's a reason that they don't do that, even though there's $200 billion in the bank and they can damn well afford it. There's a reason that they don't put that 1 day of engineering in. It's because they don't care about the customer. They care about the money. Surprise. And the very thing that is Apple's self-interest in this case, sadly, just so happens to be that of the repair businesses that work on their products. If their products are disposable, that is what is going to create a market for solving the problems created by engineering a disposable, crappy device. Now, the next thing that I have found particularly interesting is the idea that that any of the skills that you have are not necessarily transferable, but also this concept that you can't really evolve as you go or branch out as you go. So, I mean, there's mention, I remember Eli mentioning how there was a place he had, it was going great all the way up until it wasn't, and there were many things that he did that I don't do, these enterprise build-outs and things that I just don't put time or effort into even advertising or marketing, since there's so many companies here that already do that have been around for probably longer than I've been born. So, we don't do that. But for the stuff that we do, if you're working on machines and if it doesn't turn on and it's not the DC in board and it's not something connected to the board, you just say chuck it, that's going to be a less profitable model than actually figuring out what's wrong with the board and fixing it. If your idea of data recovery is plugging it into a computer, running a little piece of software, and if that software doesn't work, sending it off to drive savers, that's going to make you less money than if you have a place like this, where even if a drive is clicking and the platter's not moving and it's destroyed, we will get the data off of it. Yeah, there's a reason that there's just a little bit more faith I have in the profitability or the soft landing I would have it if I were to hit a wall than there would be with a business that only offers those base level services. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen Eli doing, the drive clicks, let me swap heads, let me do platter swap, let me figure out this firmware issue, or let me fix this board that's having this. It's not something that I believe was offered based on the data recovery videos and stuff that he's done. So when you have that as a base, would I have to let go a few people if Apple's machines actually started being a little bit more durable? Probably. We're at a point where we're likely looking to hire more people because we have more drives than Steve can service. Steve shows up hours early, he stays late, he shows up on weekends to do the drive queue, and there's still a ridiculous drive queue. And this is something that appears to be growing. Now, the third thing is this idea that, well, why do you tell people not to buy Apple products if the problems that Apple creates are the problems that you fix? Why would you do that? Either A, you don't think that they're that bad, or B, you're being dumb. And I don't think that. I mean, what kind of ego would I have to believe that people are actually going to listen to me? For example, our site says, I've told many people, I think you should back up all your data. As Roy Hendrickson told me, if your stuff is not in 3 places, it doesn't exist. Roy Hendrickson always used to say about sessions, whether it was in the Studer A800 tape era or the Pro Tools era or anything like that, if your data is not on 3 different sets of tape, 3 different hard drives, whatever, it doesn't exist. Consider it non-existent. And this is smart. This is something that I tell people every single day. Do you think people are actually going to listen to me and back up their data? No, they're not. They're not going to listen to me. If I suggest after a Cirque du Soleil show that, if life were that easy and people just simply listened to me because I made suggestions, then maybe after a Cirque du Soleil show I'd be able to get a date with Ruby Lewis. But this is not the way the world works. I don't just say things and people listen to me. Hey, I've made a video where I showcase my reasons as to why I think Apple products are less durable and have more design flaws that are basic, intrinsic in nature that don't belong in a $2,000 machine compared to almost every other manufacturer. Granted, other manufacturers have their flaws as well. We'll get to that later. But here's my evidence. Here's my argument. Nobody actually listens. You're going to buy it anyway. I've said it in many of my videos. You're probably going to buy it anyway. They tell you that you probably type it on the keyboard wrong. You're probably going to buy it anyway. They tell you you're holding the phone wrong. You're probably going to buy it anyway. I know what my place in the world is. People don't simply listen to me because I make a statement. They do what it is they want to do. It doesn't matter if I have 1 million subscribers. And one of my most viewed videos is the horrible truth about the bad engineering of Apple products, citing for over 11 years every single engineering fail that most of those were not present in other manufactured devices. It doesn't matter if I show that they're unable to make a machine where you can even open and close it in 2017. People will buy it anyway. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell them, hey, maybe you should suggest to Apple that they make a machine that you could actually effing open and close and not deny people warranty service for 2 or 3 years for your own design flaw. They're not going to do that. They're not going to hold them accountable. They're going to buy it anyway. And whataboutism being one of our favorite things, whether it comes to politics, social discussion, or even just technology issues, people will often say, what about that company? What about this model with a failure? With every other company screws something up, when any other company messes up in a big way, we crap on them for it. We make sure that HP remembers the DV9000. We make sure that Lenovo remembers Superfish. But people don't seem to hold Apple accountable or even say, it's crappy they did that. I'm not going to buy another iPhone. Screw you and your boards that bend and touch ICs that come off of the board. Screw you for audio chips that just make their way off the board. Screw you for baseband failures you didn't cover for the first 2 years that people were having them. People will buy it anyway. That's the criticism. It's considered a top-tier product, but when it has the same problems as the cheap pile of junk, people get less mad at Apple when they charge $3,000 for the junk than they do with the company producing the $300 junk, which just is mind-blowing to me and something that I don't understand. Now, the next thing that I'd like to get to here is this whole idea of transferable skills, and also the idea that somebody else is paying your bill. So one of the things that is interesting to me is when people say that Apple is the reason that you make money. Apple is the reason. Well, and the reason that I bring this up is because we are moving into this time where a lot of people are being displaced from their jobs, whether we're talking about manufacturing, older technology jobs for stuff like the people that actually worked on, analog PBX systems and stuff, or whether we're talking about coal miners, anything like that. When it comes to old jobs, this idea that the coal is what made you the money, that analog PBX is what made you your money, or that specific manufacturing plant is what made you your money. And in my case, well, Apple is what's making your money. I push back against this fervently because I think it's sending the wrong message to people that need to hear the message that that's not what's making them the money. Their brain is making them the money. Cancer is not making the oncologist money. The oncologist's surgical skills, medical diagnostic capabilities, and medical or medicinal acumen, that's what's making them money. That can be transferred to another field. If they want to work with people that have pneumonia, if they want to work with people that have had a stroke or a heart attack, I'm not saying that they could work on it immediately the next day, but if you've got that type of mind and that type of medicinal and medical acumen, that's transferable. That person can likely get up to speed if you give them a few years and then be able to work in that other field. It's not just useless. It's not like the cancer was paying them, and now if somebody cures cancer, they're useless as a human being. If you're working as a counselor or a social worker and magically people just stop beating their spouses one day, it's not the people that beat their wives or husbands in rare cases that are the reason that you made money. You made money because you have the ability to connect with an individual and work with them on the things that are causing them problems in life. Understand their emotional state, understand their social state, understand where they're coming from, and then work with them to create solutions in their life. So it's not, because if you believe that people who beat their husbands are what allow you to make money, then you're missing the big picture, and it's going to keep you from transferring to another field. Perhaps you could work with children who are misdiagnosed by their teachers with ADD, when the reality is that their teacher is very boring, like what happens in many New York City public schools, but that'll be for another video. Or maybe you could work with people who are having issues within their relationships. Maybe you could be a marriage counselor. Maybe you could be a counselor for people who have PTSD, who've been in fairly traumatic situations or scenarios. If you are the doctor, you could be a doctor in a different field. And if you're here, if you believe that Apple's products are what makes you money, then you're not going to be able to transfer your skill set to recover data from dying hard drives. You're not going to be able to transfer your skill set to working on something else. When I started working in this field, I came here from the studio world. I was working on Studer A800s and biasing and aligning and fixing when the transports and things screwed up. I was working on things like the LA2A or the Neve 8088 or the 31102 modules or the SSL J9000 modules or the garbage bus switches. Don't buy an SSL console. If you try to put a bell tree through the input, it doesn't come out through the output stages. It's just, I can't believe people spend $500,000 on an SSL. But anyway, I started doing this from that mindset. You know, I came here from working on all that type of gear, and there was one person in that field, Ricky Began, who was an absolute genius. Even in the 90s, people were paying this guy $600 to spend a few hours at his studio and fix stuff. Back when $600 was actually meant something, he was really good at his craft. He was at the top of his game. And even he said at the time, this surface mount stuff is too small. It's just not going to be fixable. It's unfixable. There's no point in even trying. Those are his words in 2007. It's very obvious if you watch this channel that that is not true. The reason I say this is because there are people who, when they believe that the audio gear is making me the money, not my brain, that they're not going to be able to transfer that knowledge or transfer that from one field to the next. And that information is something that you, or that skill set is something that you should be able to transfer from one industry to the next so that you can solve problems in your new industry. You should always be looking to solve people's problems. The reality is that sometimes you're going to have to shift your focus a little bit to solve those problems. And if you are stuck in this pigeonholed mindset that I make money as a analog PBX administrator, I make money because from Apple, if you actually believe the stuff that people say, then it's going to make it very difficult for you to switch. Someday, Apple may actually start caring about their customers. I doubt it's going to happen in my lifetime, but if it does, by the time my hair is completely gray and they start designing things where you actually can't open the laptop and close it in 2017 without it dying for no reason. If they start designing stuff where the 52 volt data pin is not right next to the 1.7 volt data line, if they start designing things that are actually liquid resistant in some way like Lenovo or IBM did back 15 effing years ago, you take that skill set and you transfer it. If you believe your money's being made because of Apple, you don't. You sit home, you probably get wasted all day, and you fail at life. But if you believe that it's not the Apple that did it, it's your ingenuity, it's your ability to continue moving forward, it's your ability, it's your gut when you believe that it's worth doing something. It is your intelligence when it comes to figuring something out. It is your fortitude when there are a bunch of walls placed in front of you to just say, I'm going to continue moving through them. If it's your social acumen when it comes to dealing with customers in a manner that actually makes them want to do business with you. If it's your ability to understand how to respond to people in a manner where they feel like it's their best friend taking time out of their day when in reality it's just a canned response in a manual. If you're able to do that, then you may be able to transfer those skills over to another business. Maybe you're fixing medical equipment. Maybe you're working at a company that does online sales and you need to come up with a way to do customer service much more efficiently when they ramp up. Maybe you're working at a new retail place. Many of the skills that are required to do the very thing that I do is something that is transferable to other places. And frankly, I think it's important if you are in this type of business and you want to stay in this type of business and you don't want to hit a wall at Mach 3, that you take a long, hard look at what it is you're doing and how viable what you're doing is. If you're doing surface stuff, if you're barely at the point of replacing a DC jack on a board, or if you're plugging a hard drive in with your little USB to SATA thing, running a little piece of $300 software and calling it a day if you don't get the data, then you're going to hit the wall at Mach 3 and go down. Because if this specific thing that's making you money stops making you money, then you're screwed. But if you have that more type of advanced skill set, then you can apply it to something else. And that is part of what we're building here. We could be at the point tomorrow where there is not a single MacBook repair that's worth doing, and there'd still be a purpose for at least 4 to 6 people to still be here doing everything else that we do. And that's what's important to build when you're building a business. This whole entire concept that if you dislike the problem that a company is creating within the world, that you should not try to fix that problem because you don't like the company creating it. I mean, really? Just imagine with any other area of the world. Imagine that you live in a town where some butane or some gas went into the air because a coke pipeline opened up that they didn't maintain properly, or a pipeline exploded into a nearby lake or river. And you start fixing it up and you start, working there and trying to minimize the damage that the spill has caused, try to get some of that junk out of the river, try to help the areas where the animals or the fish are in that area. You put a lot of effort into trying to rebuild that area, and somebody just walks up to you and says, It doesn't seem like you like Koch Industries, yet you're working on a screw-up that was created by Koch Industries. That doesn't make sense. That's dumb. You don't like Koch Industries, yet you're working on the problems created by Koch Industries. Imagine if you were there actually trying to clean up the areas that were polluted by a mess, and somebody walked over and said something to you that was that profoundly fucking stupid. Never happens. But for some reason, it's a statement that is made regularly when it comes to this industry, and it is ignorant. It is dumb. It is as good a detector of IQ below room temperature as when someone types out in a YouTube comment, "Y-O-U-R, an idiot." And if you genuinely in your head believe that this analog PBX is why I make my money, or this security camera install is why I make my money, or that working on the Apple motherboard is how I make my money, then you're not going to be ready for the next field. You're not going to be ready for the next phase, and you are going to hit that wall at Mach 3, and you are going to fail because you're going to be in a situation where your skill set is not transferable. And it's always important to be looking to how your skill set is transferable, which means giving yourself a little bit of credit. You did indeed build that. You did build, whether it's your social skills, whether it's your fortitude, whether it's your guts, whether it's your brain, whether it's your ability to relate to people, whatever skill sets that you build to be good at the job that you're doing right now, that's something that you can transfer to another. But if you're in the mindset where you believe that the reason that you exist is because you dig out coal, or because you do this in this little manufacturing room, then you're screwed. I don't think you should think that way. I think there's a lot more human capital present in a lot of the minds watching this than many of the people watching this admittedly give themselves credit for. Give yourself a little bit of credit for the skill sets that you've built up, for what you've learned, and if you genuinely believe that you haven't built up these skill sets, that you haven't been working on improving your human capital, maybe you should get out there and start. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.